For decades, there has been a signal on the radio that isn't meant for ordinary listeners. It has no host, no programs, no explanation. Just a monotonous sound. And occasionally, strange voice transmissions. This station is known as UVB-76, but most people call it something else, the buzzer. Since the late 1970s, it has been broadcasting almost continuously on 4,625 kilohertz. Anyone with a shortwave radio can tune in and hear it. The sound itself is simple, a short, repetitive tone, buzzing over and over again, about 20 times per minute. For hours, days, years. At first, it doesn't seem to mean anything. The signal doesn't change. It doesn't carry information you can understand directly. And yet, that consistency is exactly what draws attention. Radio enthusiasts around the world first picked it up during the Cold War. At the time, it was just one of many strange frequencies. But over time, it became clear this one was different. Most radio stations come and go. They change format, frequency, purpose. UVB-76 doesn't. It has remained almost unchanged, and that's what makes it unusual. At times, it feels like nothing more than a technical signal, background noise with no real purpose. But then, something happens. The buzzing suddenly stops, and a voice comes through. It speaks in Russian. Calm, flat, almost mechanical, like someone reading from a script. The message sounds like this: UVB-76, UVB-76, 93882, Nymina, or NZHTI 07377, Pozazheny 90518779. The words don't form a clear meaning. They aren't explained, and they're always delivered in the same neutral tone. Then the signal returns. The buzzing continues, as if nothing happened. Sometimes there are no voice messages for weeks. And then suddenly, several appear within a short time. So who is transmitting these signals? And who are they meant for? To get closer to an answer, it helps to understand the context in which this station appeared. During the Cold War, shortwave radio played a critical role. It allowed signals to travel thousands of kilometers. They could bounce off the ionosphere and reach almost anywhere on Earth. This made it an ideal tool for military and intelligence use, especially for sending encrypted messages. There was an entire category of broadcasts known as number stations. They transmitted sequences of numbers, letters, or coded words, usually spoken aloud, sometimes generated electronically. To an outside listener, these messages sounded meaningless, but to the intended recipient, someone with the right key, they carried precise instructions. It's widely believed that these stations were used to communicate with agents abroad. Their advantage was simplicity and reliability. All you needed was a radio receiver. No need to transmit anything back. No risk of being detected. UVB-76 is often grouped into this category, but there's a key difference. Traditional number stations broadcast at specific times. They send their messages and then go silent. UVB-76 doesn't. It almost never stops, and that constant signal raises the biggest question of all. Why keep broadcasting nonstop if messages are so rare? One explanation is technical. The continuous tone could serve as a marker, proof that the channel is active. It shows that the system is functioning, that the transmitter is still under control. It may also prevent others from using the same frequency. From a practical standpoint, this makes sense, but it doesn't explain everything, especially when you look at certain moments in its history. One of the most discussed events happened in 2010. During that time, listeners noticed unusual activity. the signal changed. There were additional noises, unexpected sounds, even fragments of conversation. It sounded as if a microphone had been left on by mistake. In one recording, you can hear people talking in the background. They sound uncertain, like they didn't realize they were being broadcast. These moments are rare, but they add to the mystery. They suggest that the station may not be entirely automated. Shortly after that, reports emerged that the transmitter might have been relocated. The previously assumed location, somewhere near St. Petersburg, was no longer certain. Later, abandoned military facilities were discovered. Inside, there were documents, logs, and equipment. Some of it dated back to the same period the station had been active. This strengthened the theory that UVB-76 is tied to military infrastructure, but no direct link was ever confirmed. None of these locations were officially identified as the source of the signal. Meanwhile, the station kept broadcasting, unchanged, unexplained. It gives the impression that its operation isn't tied to a single place, or at least that it can be moved without interruption. There are also more complex interpretations. Some researchers believe the station could be part of an automated response system, possibly connected to Cold War-era military protocols. According to these theories, the signal itself is what matters. As long as it continues, the system is considered active. The constant transmission becomes a sign of stability, and any prolonged interruption could indicate a failure. Ideas like this are often linked to systems designed for extreme scenarios, including those meant to ensure a response even under catastrophic conditions. However, it's important to be clear. There is no confirmed evidence for this. No official source has ever explained what UVB-76 is for. And that's what makes it so compelling. It exists somewhere between the known and the unknown. On one hand, it's real, physical signal you can tune into. On the other, there's no clear explanation for its purpose. Occasionally, listeners report other anomalies, short fragments of music, unusual interruptions, subtle changes in the rhythm of the buzzing. Small details, but noticeable to those who have followed the station for years. They don't provide answers, but they reinforce the idea that the signal isn't entirely static, that something, somewhere, is maintaining it. Despite advances in modern communication, UVB-76 has never disappeared. It hasn't been replaced, it hasn't been shut down. It's still there. You can still hear it today, on the same frequency, almost exactly the same as it was decades ago. Which raises another question. If the technology is outdated, why maintain it? If it's no longer used, why not turn it off? And if it is still being used, for what? There are no clear answers. Over time, many systems like this become understood. Documents are declassified, histories are revealed, but UVB-76 remains an exception. It has never been officially explained, never fully documented, and never taken offline. And as long as that signal continues, it remains a reminder that some parts of the past are still operating quietly in the background. Their purpose known only to those who never speak about it.